Hello, our wellness community. This is Pip Coleman. I'm just jumping in here to say hey. Normally on Thursday nights, I do my Creative Corner interviews with creative souls, people with wellness businesses or creative businesses that are wanting to promote themselves and maybe get on and have a little bit of a chat with me in an interview type of format so that you can feel supported and not alone when you're doing your spruik about yourself. So Creative Corner is available to anyone who has some sort of creativity that they are involved in their business. So if you're an artist, a poet, a sound healer, somebody who creates products like with essential oils, or if you create art, if you create anything where you're creative, if you're an author, then you might like to get in touch with me and we can do an interview on this platform, our wellness community, which is amazing. So let me know if you're interested in being interviewed on Creative Corner on our wellness community by getting in touch with me at Pip Coleman Author Coach. That's my platform. And I am, not only do I do interviews, I'm also a Reiki master and also do some coaching, meditation and psychic development classes. And that is my wellness business. So I know what it's like to be in business for myself. I know what it's like to be in the wellness industry, and I'm also a creative soul. So it all kind of makes sense for me to be doing these interviews with you folks out there. So let me know if you'd like to get involved. And today I thought I would give you a little introduction, I guess, to a couple of things. So I'm going to share with you a little bit about my journey to writing my book, which was my creative journey to writing Finding My Soul at Sea, which is my little book that was produced last year. And so I was going to share a little bit about that. And then I'd also like to tell you a bit about the Spiritual Discovery Summit that's coming up on this Sunday, the 25th of October, to launch an amazing project that I've been involved in for the Spiritual Discovery Journal, which is coming up on the 25th of October. And some people have already received their journals in the mail, which is very exciting. So if you've pre-ordered your Spiritual Discovery Journal, that is going to be coming out to you in the mail very, very soon, and that's very exciting. And then on Sunday we're going to be talking about each of the 12 people who contributed to the Spiritual Discovery Journal. The 12 different months will be speaking. So each of those different people will be speaking at the summit and showing you how to use their different parts of the journal. So that's going to be cool. And I'll be speaking at 10:20 tomorrow on Sunday morning. If you would like to get involved, Michelle Scott, who you've seen here on our wellness community, she's going to be speaking on Sunday. Gail Connolly is going to be speaking on Sunday, and there's a number of other people like Gwenda Smith. So there's a few of us who are part of our wellness community. Trish Murray is also involved in the Spiritual Journal too. I think. I'm pretty sure. I don't have everybody's names in front of me. I hope I'm not saying people's names who are not actually in the journal. That would be weird. But anyway, so we're all going to be presenting our part in the journal on Sunday at the summit. So I've put the link to the event in the blurb underneath this video, so you can just click on the event and read all the information about the Spiritual Discovery Summit on Sunday. I've also put a link to the Rebirth Magazine, our 4th edition of the Rebirth Magazine, which is produced by Sync Media, and our wellness community has a section in that little magazine. It's a big magazine now, an online magazine, and you can also get a copy of it posted out to you. So the Rebirth Magazine is available at the link. You can have a look at the link underneath this video to check out the Rebirth Magazine, and the Our Wellness Community section is something that you might like to be involved in as someone who's part of the Our Wellness community. If you'd like to be involved in the Rebirth Magazine to advertise your services, or maybe you'd like to write an article for the magazine. We're always looking for people to write articles or put advertising into the magazine. Feel free to send me a message and let me know, and I can organise that for you, which would be amazing, so we can spruik you in that platform as well. And as I said before, I wanted to have a little chat to you about my creative journey, just because this is an opportunity for me to normally, as I say, talk to other people about their creative journey. But I wanted to share with you today that a little story about how finding my soul at sea came to life. So one of the things that happened, this book basically is a mini memoir of my time working on board cruise ships in the United States. So it's my spiritual journey that happened in a very non-spiritual place, which is working on board cruise ships. And the stories in there, the first part of the book is all about the crazy, ins and outs of what happens when you're working on board a cruise ship, all the silliness, all the craziness. And the second part of the book is the spiritual journey part. So that's the bit where I started to teach meditation classes on board. I started to teach personal development classes on board. And the people that I met and the things that happened after I started doing those soul-fulfilling things in that environment, what happened to me after that was that I actually started thinking maybe I could do this stuff on land. Maybe I could actually teach people and coach people and be a mentor to people as a business. So that's where my idea of actually running my own business came from, was when I was playing and trying to get that sanity back in a crazy environment of working on board a cruise ship. So the impetus to actually write the book was because people would say to me all the time, who are you? Where have you come from? And I would tell them, well, I've worked on board cruise ships and I've traveled all around the world, and, I do these, different jobs, and, I've had many different jobs as well. And they would say, oh, you should really write a book. And I was thinking about how would I actually put together a book. And a lot of people, think, oh, I've got good stories, but could I really put it together in a book format? So one of the things that happened was I started writing down little bits of stories. So I'd have a memory of something funny or something silly or something dramatic or something sort of profound that happened while I was working on board the ships. And I would write them in a notebook. And I got together a collection of stories over a period of time, probably a couple of years, just not really having any idea of how I was going to put it together as a book. And then at one point I thought, you know what, I was waking up every morning and my guides, my angels, my higher self, my intuition was telling me that I needed to contact somebody to help me get this book to happen, to actually put it together. So I put a note on my Facebook page, and you might be able to do that yourself if you're interested. You can put on to Facebook that you'd like a recommendation for whatever you want a recommendation for. So I put up on my Facebook page recommendations for a literary agent or publisher that I could speak to. Did anyone know in my tribe a literary agent or a publisher that I could get in touch with and ask them some questions about how to put together a book? And one of my friends, she had written a book called Bone Broth Recipes, and the lovely this lovely lady told me that her publisher might be able to help me. So she put me in touch with him, and his name was Ocean Reeve. And I thought, that's interesting. His name's Ocean, and my book is about finding my soul at sea. So I thought, that's an interesting kind of coincidence. Not that I believe in coincidences anymore, as anyone who knows me. I believe that we meet the right people at the right time, and I believe that I met Ocean for that very reason, because he was the perfect person to help me get this book off the ground. So when I pitched the idea, when I said to him, I want it to be 2 parts, I want half of it to be about the crazy, silly stuff, and I want the other half to be about spiritual thing that happened to me while I was working on board, that spiritual opening that happened to me. And he said, that's great, I love it, send me some chapters. So I sent him some of the stories that I'd been writing, and he said to me, that's great, we need to work out some sort of chapter structure. So the first thing that we did was we started to work out what sort of chapters might be involved in the book. So I knew I wanted part 1 and part 2, and then we just needed to work out how we were going to arrange the stories. So he helped me to put together the stories and into chapters, and I decided that I would go with themes. So there's a chapter called Funny, and there's a chapter called Weird, and there's a chapter called Crazy Guests, and there's a chapter called Dramatic, and there's a chapter called Romance, and each of the different chapters has about 4 or 5 stories in each chapter that are around that theme. So rather than going in perfect chronological order, I mean, I was working on board cruise ships for 6 years, so I had hundreds and hundreds of different memories and stories and things that I could have put into the book, but I decided that I would go with the theme idea instead. And the other thing that I talked to Ocean about was, should I use the real names of the people that I was working with, because obviously it's a mini memoir, it's about me and my time working on the cruise ship. So he said to me, look, if you use the real names of people, then you need to ask their permission to put their information in a book, and you've got to have them sign off on that. So I decided that instead of doing that, because that was going to take me a long time to get all those different people's permission, and some people I wasn't even in contact with anymore, I decided that I would change everybody's names so that there was a pseudonym for everybody in the book. So the only person who had their real name was me, and my family members, I kept their names the same as well, because they were sort of side characters in the story, because it's mainly about my story of working on board. And yeah, you can't really change, in this particular instance, I couldn't really change my family members' names for the purpose of this particular project. So then what was interesting was Ocean had me writing and putting together all the chapters, and each month he would check in with me and say, how are you going? And I would say, oh, I've written like 4 more chapters, or I'm up to chapter 7, or wherever I was at, and he would just encourage me to keep going. So at this point, no money had changed hands. Basically, he was helping me, supporting me to write the book and get it to the point where I had a manuscript, because you can't actually move to the first stage of publishing until you have an actual manuscript that has chapters and parts and sections to it, which I didn't really get. So his mentoring started pretty much as soon as I contacted him. And the interesting thing was that while I was writing all these chapters, I started to have this really funny sound that was happening in my ear. So one of my ears, those of you who are spiritual, on a spiritual path, or wellness people, you'll know that sometimes you get that really high-pitched sort of ringing sound in your ears, and that is usually angels downloading their messages to you. That's you getting downloads from the universe. And you can ask the angels to turn their volume down if it gets a bit loud sometimes. But basically, that was happening to me, but the sound was very different. So while I was writing the book, the sound that was happening in my ears was like a sort of a low, sort of humming noise. And for a long time I thought that my neighbours had bought a generator, because it sounded like it was sort of this sort of humming sound in my ear. It was really odd. And then I noticed that it was happening when I was not at home. So I would go out to the library, or I'd go out to a cafe to write, and I would still get the humming sound in my ear, and I thought, that's interesting and strange. So it took a few months, but at around the 8 or 9 month mark of actually focusing on writing, I realised that the sound sounded more like waves. Like that sort of kind of sound. You know, when you put a shell up to your ear and you can hear the sound of the waves in your ear. It was so cool. And I was like, that's what the sound is. It's like the sound of the ocean. And then I was like, here we go again with the sound of the ocean. The book's called Finding My Soul at Sea. My publisher's name is Ocean Reeve. I'm like, come on, seriously. So these were all signs for me that I was going in the right direction. You know, that this was where I was supposed to be going with it. And so when I got to the point where I'd actually finished writing my first draft, and I actually had chapter 1 all the way through to chapter 21 or 22, and they were divided into the 2 sections, Ocean then said to me, okay, at this point, we now need to do what we call a manuscript appraisal. So that was when we started to actually do the paid part of our mentorship. So if you want to get in more information about this, by the way, I have put Ocean Reeve Publishing's link into the blurb underneath this video so that you can have a look at Ocean's page if you're looking at maybe writing your own book or just curious about the process. And you can also get a copy of my book through the bookstore at Ocean Reeve Publishing as well. So we get to the point where we're doing the manuscript appraisal, and that's the bit where we start to do the paid part of the mentorship. So each different part of the publishing process, I did what they call assisted independent publishing. So you pay for the different parts of the mentorship as you go through the process, and you pay for the manuscript appraisal, you pay for the editing, and you go through each of the different stages and you pay for each section as you go. So we do the appraisal, and someone who's completely independent, who's never read the stories, read through the book, read through the manuscript, and then they gave me a document that said what their appraisal of the book was, whether they felt that it was marketable, whether they felt that it was readable, easy to read, whether their suggestions on how to, you know, make it flow better. You know, it wasn't an edit, it was a, do you think that this is a good idea, and is there any suggestions to make it a better idea, and whatever. And obviously these are completely just suggestions. You don't have to do what the appraiser suggests, because with independent publishing, it's your book, it's your project, and you don't have to do anything that they suggest. But I figured that for the most part I did take most of the suggestions, because I figured they knew what they were doing. They work in this industry, and this is their job, this is their role, to advise authors on how to do things better. So once you actually do the manuscript appraisal, then you make the changes that you feel you want to make, and then you send it through back again for the first edit. So that's where they actually go, right, now we're actually going to edit this and put it into a proper paragraph format, and we're going to look at the spelling and the grammar and the words and all of that sort of thing. And so a different person then goes through the book from start to finish and looks at it that way. Once you've done the first lot of editing, they send it back to you, and then you actually make any changes that you feel you want to make, and you make comments, and you go back and forth until everybody is happy with the final product. And that can take months and months and months. It just depends on you. It takes as long as it takes for you to build your book into whatever format it needs to be. Again, it's totally up to you, and you can take as long or as short as you want. I know some authors who've made, created their books and done it in a few months. And this particular year, 2020 has been a year of lots of people creating masterpieces, because they've had time. Perhaps they've lost their job, and so they've had time to actually write and focus on something creative. So it's been quite interesting to see the work that's been coming out in this time. Other people, for me, as I say, it took me about 9 months to actually write the book properly. And then it took about a year and a half to put together, going back and forth with the editing. Then you have to decide on what you're going to put on the cover. So we decided on the cover being, I wanted it to be an ocean with a sunset, because that's one of my favourite times of the day. And I also wanted it to be wraparound, so I wanted it to go all the way around the back of the book. So you can see there that the picture goes all the way around to the back of the book. You decide obviously on the colours, how you want it laid out. They give you a couple of proofs so that you can decide what you want to put in that space. I like the idea of, somebody suggested to me putting the little Polaroids of me and the ship on the front, so it was clear that it was my story and it was about being on a cruise ship. And the title was already decided quite early on in the piece. Then on the back, you've got a little blurb that you need to, it's like a synopsis, a summary of the book, as you might have read on most books. And then I decided I wanted a few more pictures on the back of me working on board the cruise ship. And then they also, the publisher actually organises this number. This is really important. This ISBN number is important for when you have your book in the library, or anytime you create a book that you actually want to sell, you need to get an ISBN number, and that is something that you pay for. But Ocean Reef Publishing actually organised that for me, and I'm in the process of organising a second, a companion to go with this book. I'm organising a companion journal that's going to be going with this book. And Ocean Reef are organising another ISBN number for that book, because it is a separate book, you know, so you need to have that for each book, which is really cool. So that'll be coming soon. I'll share that next time when it's ready to come out. So the Find Your Soul Journal is coming very soon. But this little project was amazing. It was hugely challenging. I really had a great time writing the book, and I didn't have any problems with the writing part, but the putting it together and then starting to market it, like once you actually have a book in your hand, how do you market it? How do you get it out there into the world? And that's something that a publisher can help you with. So Ocean Reef Publishing obviously helped me with my book. The people who are organising the beautiful spiritual discovery journal is Sync Media, which is our friends Kathy and Sarah from Spiritual Events Directory. They are organising the spiritual discovery journal, and that's coming through Sync Media. So you know, there's lots of different beautiful independent publishers that you can get in touch with, who have amazing staff, amazing people that can help you. And if you want any advice, or if you just want to have a chat to me about your idea, about your book, about your even if it's just a tiny little, you know, nugget of an idea at this point, if you haven't got a manuscript yet, that's okay. There's people out there who can help you to put it together. And that's just a matter of asking the question. It was a huge journey, as I say. It was a big challenge. I did find myself getting, you know, quite scared at some points, where I was like, oh my God, people are going to read my story and think things about me. And you know, there's a lot of personal development that happens when you are putting yourself out there into the world. If you're an artist, if you're a creative person in any way, you know what it feels like when you write that poem, or you write that story, or write that blog, or you put that that graphic design, or that thing that you've created, that you've put your heart and soul out into the world. You know how it feels. So it's something that you have to work through to feel more comfortable about yourself. There's a lot of personal development work that happens in this process. You wouldn't think it, but there really is, because lots of issues like about our self-worth come up when we're putting ourselves out there into the world. Oh, thanks, Kathy, for that little heart. And so we are coming to the end of my time here on Creative Corner tonight. But I hope that was helpful to you, and that you feel like you understand a little bit more about how to at least start to get a book out there into the world. And as I said, if you're interested in getting a copy of Finding My Soul at Sea, that'd be amazing. You can go to oceanreeve.com or oceanreevepublishing.com to the bookstore, and you can order the updated revised edition from there. If you are interested in having yourself interviewed on this platform, Creative Corner, on our wellness community, you just need to get in touch with me at Pip Coleman, author coach, on Facebook, and I'd be more than happy to talk to you about that. So it's been a pleasure as always. Hope you have a wonderful evening, and I look forward to seeing you very soon on this platform or another. I'll see you soon. Thanks guys, have a good night.